Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Looking forward to this presentation today for our wonderful Smart to Play customers. Let's see here, just a quick intro before we get started. So I'm Heidi Flagg. I am the marketing director here at PDQ and Smart Deploy, and we are looking forward to sharing one of our products that sits under the PDQ umbrella now, SimpleMDM, for your Apple device management. I want to introduce Zach Fagan. He is one of the sales engineers here, and he is our expert on all things SimpleMDM. And if you stump him, we also have Eric McCann here, product manager for SimpleMDM, who can answer some of those deeper technical questions if they come up today. So want to just remind you of a few quick things before I hand it over to Zach to get started. We are recording the event today, so if you need to drop, totally understand. We will be sure to send out a link to the recording most likely early next week. Additionally, please use the questions box within GoToWebinar here if you have any questions for Zach about SimpleMDM, and we will get those answered today. And then lastly, we have a special promo for Smart Deploy customers to try SimpleMDM free for 6 months. So there's typically a 30-day trial of SimpleMDM that's just free to everyone. I have a special link. I'll go ahead and post it in the chat. If you use that link, it'll start your 30-day trial. And then when that 30 days ends, it'll roll right into another 5 months free where you can manage up to 50 devices with SimpleMDM. So give it a try. I know that Apple device management has been something that Smart Deploy customers have asked for many years, and happy to now have a solution that we can share with you and get you started on it and get your feedback about how you like it. With that, I'm going to go ahead and hand things over to Zach to run through an overview of SimpleMDM and a quick demo.
That's the best intro I've ever had. Thank you. So this is my first GoToWebinar experience, so hopefully we get through this smoothly. So good to meet everybody. I'm Zach. I am a sales engineer here with PDQ, SimpleMDM, Smart Deploy. I started with the company. I started with PDQ doing support, and then I moved into, I was a Windows sysadmin for years, and then moved into, showing off the products. And then thankfully, SimpleMDM has come into the family, as well as Smart Deploy, and it has just been a fantastic product. I tell everybody that if I was a Windows admin who had Apple devices that they didn't want to have to look at, right? If they wanted to be able to make that hands off and live in Windows world, this is great. You can set things up, let it run itself, and you don't really have to interact with the devices a ton. On the other side of that, if you're an Apple admin and you just want a really easy way to manage your devices, I think SimpleMDM lives up to the name of simple. I just like to give that context to say that I was one of you guys, right? I was a customer. I was managing those devices, and I love the product significantly. So let's kind of dive in. They made me a slide that says, let's see a demo, which I really appreciate. So we're going to dive into a demo of the products. Let me minimize this here. All right, so I'm going to kind of focus on, so SimpleMDM is a cloud-based solution that allows you to manage devices anywhere in the world as long as they have an internet connection of some kind, wired connection, 5G, Wi-Fi, whatever that is. And so it's super easy to add devices and then make changes on them wherever you need. What we're going to focus on today is an iOS demo. So SimpleMDM has the ability to manage iPhones, iPads, Mac devices, as well as Apple TVs. Mac devices, there's a couple different options in here that I may touch on throughout where you can manage those. But for today, we're going to go through the enrollment of an iPad. So as far as enrollment goes, we make it really simple for you. There, I said the thing, I said simple. So as you can see, we've got a very interesting Guy Fieri theme today for our demo. So the first thing that I want to talk about is enrollment. So there's a couple types of enrollments that you can do with your devices. So this is that situation where you've got a new device, you've brought a new device in, or you want to, you've got existing devices that you want to bring in. One very beneficial thing that you can do is get yourself an Apple Business Manager account. Apple Business Manager is going to assist in the automated enrollment process that we can do. You don't have to go through automated enrollment, but it is going to make your life a lot easier. It gives you the ability to actually ship a device to an end user, have them turn it on, connect it to Wi-Fi, and the device is going to set itself up, which is what we're going to do today. Apple Business Manager lets you add devices to that account, automatically connect them to SimpleMDM, and then automatically enroll them. You do have one other option, which is the enrollment by link, which you can use. So you can send your, oh, that's not it. You can send your end users a link, a URL, something like that, to go through the enrollment process. The one downside to that is that if you do an enrollment by link, this is an Apple thing, if the device gets reset or if the end user can get to the profile to remove it, they can't actually unenroll the device. So you get a lot of the same functionality, but you're going to have that caveat. Automated enrollment is going to make it so you are the only person who can unenroll that device. But enrollment by link is great for if you have like a BYOD situation where you have an end user who maybe doesn't want you to be able to manage their device completely, but you maybe want to install some apps, make sure some things are happening. So let's talk about automated enrollment first. Let's get the device into SimpleMDM. So I've got this iPad at the point where it is just having me put in my wireless Wi-Fi password. You guys can't see that right now, but I'll share my screen in a second. So I'm connecting to Wi-Fi now. And I may have to unplug and plug it back in to make that work. Awesome. So that should be coming up in a second. So there we go. So we're connecting to Wi-Fi. I'm going to go ahead and next. And now it's going through the activation process. So the device is going to check in with Apple, see that we have pointed the device to SimpleMDM, and go ahead and enroll the device in SimpleMDM. Now, some of the things that you can do as far as part of your enrollment process is you can set these, what they used to call DEP settings. It's now automated enrollment. You can select the language, the region, things like that. One big thing is you can skip all of these panes, right? So your end user, one, probably doesn't want to go through this setup process. And two, you also maybe don't want them setting up an Apple ID or something like that. Or you're the one setting up the device. You just don't want to spend as much time on it. So you can skip all of these panes. We have some iOS specific panes and some macOS specific panes as well. But this helps you get through that setup process faster. On macOS devices, you can even do things like create an account, create an admin account. Inside the device, you can save, a support phone number, support email address, things like that. This is going into the Nacho Testers department, apparently, group, the Nacho Testers department. You can also do things like set an initial device group, and we'll talk about groups in just a second. You can give a welcome screen on your device. So if you want the device to show a picture or a GIF or a message, like maybe they need to call a phone number whenever the device comes up, or maybe you just want to say welcome to the team in a funny and interesting way, you can do that. And then I don't have one set up here, but you can set up an identity provider. So like a Google Workspace or Azure AD or something like that, so that if you do ship a device to an end user, whenever they go to get into the device the first time, it will require them to authenticate with those credentials just to validate that they are a member of your organization. So if a device gets shipped to somebody's neighbor on accident, they can't set the device up and start using it without providing credentials first. So I'm going to go ahead and hit next and start that enrollment process. So it's going to come up with that welcome screen that we talked about, a little more Guy Fieri. We are going to Flavortown today, guys. So we're starting the enrollment. So it's going to configure. Now, normally what would happen after the configuration is it would go ahead and start installing apps and laying down profiles. I intentionally didn't do that today because I just want you guys to be able to see what that looks like whenever it happens. But what I think is probably the best feature, so we're installing the SimpleMDM app, that happens by default. One of the best features, if not the best feature, is this automated enrollment process, right? Automation is the name of the game. We want to save you guys some time, so you can have every device configure itself to the way it should look and perform at the time of enrollment. We install the SimpleMDM app automatically for a couple of reasons. One is location tracking. There are a couple more, but if you absolutely don't want that on your devices, you don't have to have that. You can take that off. So once your device enrolls, it's going to enroll itself into a group, right? So we've got several groups here. So groups are just containers for devices. So whenever you apply profiles or you apply applications, you're going to probably apply them at the group level, right? Typically, if you have 50 iPads, you want maybe all of them or 25 of them or something to have the same configuration. You don't usually have a bunch of 25 separate configurations. You can do that, but this just makes it easier so you don't have to assign things to one device at a time. The group interface is pretty basic. We'll look at the Downtown Flavortown. So Downtown Flavortown lets you set a group name. You can set a lock screen message, which is nice because you can actually use these attributes here, and you can have the lock screen show. We can actually do it really quick. So we can say device name, and we'll use custom attributes, and we'll just say, what's the attribute name? Device name. I'm doing it live, guys. Device name. And then we can put the serial number and enter our custom attribute there. So what that's going to let you do is it's going to let, whenever it's on the lock screen, it'll display that information, right? So if you have an end user that calls in and is having trouble with the device, you can really easily just say, hey, what's the serial number for that? Or what's the name for that? And then you can find the device in SimpleMDM a lot faster to be able to take a look at it. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. That should apply here in a minute whenever I move the device. So you can see the device is now set up. So we're already to the screen. It took a minute maybe to set the device up. The user can now start using the device. So the next thing that we want to do as part of that process, and actually, you know what, let's just look at some of the information that we're gathering from the device, right? So I've got my different devices here. These are all named after menu items that Guy Fieri has had on his restaurant menu at one point or another. So we are going to check out the Dynamite Shrimp device, right? So you can see that my iPad enrolled here. So this is the iPad device that just enrolled. Dynamite Shrimp already has location tracking enabled, so I want to use that one. So you're going to get information like the name of the device, right? You can obviously set a friendly name inside of SimpleMDM. You can also change the actual device name from here too if you want to. This is just going to let you say if you want it to be the name of one of your team members or something like that, you can do that. You can see that this device was enrolled via DEP, so it was automatic. It went through automated enrollment. When you take an iOS device through automated enrollment, it activates supervision on the device. And supervision is what lets you do a little bit more in-depth management of the device. You have a few more options as far as what you can lock down rather than just being able to push apps to the device. You're going to get information like IP address. You're going to get, settings. You're going to get security information. Does the device have a passcode? Things like that. You can also do location tracking. Now, location tracking is a little bit funky in Apple world. Apple kind of makes it harder to do. We do have to use the SimpleMDM app to do location tracking. You'll just have to opt into that location tracking on the device, and then you can track the device wherever it is, right? So you can see this one's out in Utah, Dynamite Shrimp is. You can also see apps that are installed, right? We've only got the SimpleMDM app on here now, but any app we install, you'll see there. If you push media down, you'll see that. Settings, you can move the device between groups, and then you can see which profiles are applied, which is none right now, but we're going to do that here in just a sec. We also let you take actions against the device. So if you want to push assigned apps and media, let's say maybe the device was off and it didn't get the app exactly when you wanted it, you can force push that. However, these devices are all checking in every hour with SimpleMDM. So if something's set to happen, it's going to happen within the hour. So it's going to check in every hour. Whenever we push apps and we push media and things like that, profiles, whenever the device is on, it's going to take place pretty much instantaneously, which you guys will see here shortly. You can send a message to the device, so that'll just send a push notification to the SimpleMDM app, whatever message you want. You can enable loss mode, so let's do that real quick so you guys can see it. So I'm going to jump back into my iPad. We're going to enable loss mode. So you can put a message up here if you want to. So we can say bring back the iPad. You can provide a phone number if you want. And if you want to add a little footnote at the bottom, you can. So we're going to enable loss mode. That's going to make it so I can't get into the device now. So if one of your devices is missing, you can very easily lock anybody out of using it. I can't get into it. I'm hitting the button right now. Nothing's happening, right? Whenever you enable loss mode, if you have location tracking set, it's going to go ahead and force that location data to you. And then if you, let's say the device is lost in the room, right? Or you have somebody who doesn't know where it is, you can play a sound. I don't know if the sound's going to come through, but it's probably good for you guys. If it doesn't, it's the worst. You probably had it as your alarm at one point. It's just that, if you guys can hear it. All right, let's disable loss mode to get that to stop so I can immediately get back into the device. So as soon as you found the device, you can go ahead and enable loss mode. You can see that the device checked in with location. That's where I live in Indiana. Please don't come here for support. I can't help you. The other few actions that we have are, so this is a couple big ones, right? So if let's say somebody leaves your organization and they have a passcode still on the device and you don't want to just wipe it, you need to get into it. So you can actually clear that passcode and then set a new one yourself so you can get into the device to retrieve data. We also allow you to disable activation lock. So if someone has logged in with an Apple ID and created an activation lock on that device, you can remove that activation lock instead of sitting on the phone with Apple for 4 hours and trying to send them receipts and prove that you own the device, right? Makes things a lot easier. Wipe the device remotely, restart the device, and then of course you can shut it down. And shout out to Eric's team. We now have the ability to enable and disable Bluetooth on the device. One day he's going to tell me why you would want to do that, but we do have the ability to do it. And then really quickly, I'd just like to touch on logging, right? So we do a lot of logging. We're going to get everything from if the device took an action through SimpleMDM, if an admin initiated that action, so you can see I initiated the device loss mode, or if if there's an error, you're going to get good error information there. Cool. So moving on to, let's talk about profiles. So profiles I like to look at profiles as essentially Windows group policy, but faster. So I've created a few profiles that are just based off of Guy Fieri sayings, a little funkalicious, holy moly stromboli, a few of those. Man, I hope you guys like Guy Fieri, or this has to be the longest session ever. So let's talk about some of the profiles that we have that you can apply. So we have a bunch of different profile templates here that you can use. You can create multiple versions of each of these, right? So if the profile has a dot, that means it applies to that device. You can use it on that type of device. If it has an S, that does mean supervision is required. So we talked about supervision a little bit earlier, but essentially supervision is just enabling you to take additional actions on the device, lock things down, things like that. That is typically done through automated enrollment. Supervision being enabled. There's a couple other ways, but automated enrollment's really going to be your best bet. So you can do things like prevent apps from being installed. You can set up an email account in advance. You can, for your Mac devices, you can encrypt file vault and even escrow the recovery key to SimpleMDM, so you have it, to use later. You can do things like determine how OS updates apply to the device. So let's look at a few of them that I've created to just kind of give you guys an idea. So let's go in here. I think I've got all of these. Let's assign these to here we go. Let's do downtown Flavortown. So I'm going to go ahead and here to profiles, and I'm going to assign profile. So I want to assign, let's do the software policy for iOS, and let's do app restrictions. Let's just do them all. We'll do all of these now. Okay, so I've got all of my profiles applied. Here in just a second, you're going to see what's called a web clip be created. So there it is now. So a web clip, if you're not familiar, is just basically an app that goes directly to a website. So you can hit this web clip. It'll open up the browser. Go to guyfieri.com. I'm not laying off this Guy Fieri thing, guys. So there's Guy Fieri's website. You can go directly there. You can link that to your own website. You can link that to really anything you want and have it go directly out to that website. Super, super nice little tool. So web clips are created via profiles, right? Another big thing you can do is maybe you want to block them from your users from getting out to certain websites, right? So you can create an allow list or a deny list. So you can say only allow the devices to go out to these websites, or you can say allow them to get to anything except for these URLs that we've listed, right? So we're going to block the Emeril Lagasse's website because he, in my mind, is Guy Fieri's biggest adversary. So we're going to prevent you from getting out to that website. So if I was to open up a browser, we'll just open that back up and go to emerils.com. Hopefully I spelled this right. Nope, I sure didn't. Let's go back. We're doing it live, guys. Web content filter. We'll just copy it. Okay, emerils.com. Got to be able to spell. That's a big one. There you go. So if you go to a website you have listed there, it's just going to say restricted site. That's going to work for any of the browsers. The user's not able to get out to the site now. One other big thing that I like to show off as far as our profiles is the ability to block applications. So maybe you don't want to prevent your user from installing any application. You just want them to, certain applications you don't want them to be able to use, right? So I've got an app restrictions policy here called That's Money. So currently we are blocking the Facebook app as well as the Tips app. So I'm going to go ahead and assign that out. We'll talk about app assignment here in just a second, but I've got Downtown Flavortown assigned now. Maybe. There we go. And we're going to jump back over here to profiles. So as you can see, the Tips app does not show up on the device currently. So we're currently blocking that. I can very easily come in here and say app restrictions, and then I can flip this and say only allow these apps. So instead of saying block certain apps, I can say block everything except for these apps. Now, what I want you to see here is how quickly these profiles apply, right? So I'm going to say, let's save it. 1, 2, 3. You let me down now. There we go. So 3 seconds, and now you have nothing but the Tips app and the Facebook app, which should be installing shortly now that I've unblocked it. So it's very easy to say restrict what my user can do to certain apps. The other thing that I want to talk about is sometimes you're not ready for OS updates immediately, right? So maybe you don't want to have iOS or Mac OS updates applying right away. So you can come in here and you can schedule when those updates actually happen for your devices. So you can say, I want these updates to apply maybe Saturday and Sunday between midnight and 6 a.m. That's a good way of, as long as your users leave their devices on, that's a good way of updating outside of business hours. And your users don't have to be involved, right? They don't have to go in and accept anything. We will just go ahead and push that update. Or we'll technically allow the device to install that update. And then the last thing I like to show off is just our restrictions profile. Restrictions profile is kind of a big one. We've got a lot grouped in there. This is going to give you the ability to block most everything that you want to block on the device. So you can do things like disallow AirDrop, disallow iMessage. You can prevent the user from creating an Apple ID if you don't want them to have an Apple ID on the device at all. Prevent them from connecting to iCloud. A whole bunch of different things that you can go through here and take a look at. Where you can block even the rating of movies and stuff if they're doing that kind of thing on the devices, you can control. Awesome. So that's profiles. I highly recommend that you guys, if you do get a chance to start a trial, go out and look through those different profiles, check out the different things that you can do. Also, there are third-party apps that allow you to create profiles, things like iMazing Editor and things like that. You can actually create profiles there and then import them using our custom configuration profile. So if there's something that we don't even provide that you have already outside of the product, you can import that and still use it. So let's talk about installing applications, because I think another big thing that you're going to want to do if you're using an MDM, right, is you're going to want to configure the apps that are on your end users' devices. Let me actually, forgot to flip my profile back here. Let's turn that back so you can actually see the apps getting installed. All right, so the way that we do applications is we have an app catalog, right? So the app catalog is going to allow you to add applications that you want to push out. So the easiest way, in my opinion, to do app management, now again, you can have your end users sign in with an Apple ID, you can have them install their own apps, that's totally fine. Through an Apple Business Manager account, Apple has a program called VPP. It's now called Apps and Books, just kind of interchangeable terms. What they allow you to do is they allow you to pull licenses for different applications. So if you want to get a license for Google Chrome or Facebook or whatever app it is, most of those are free licenses, right? When you're installing apps on your device now, there's a license associated in the background. You're just not seeing it, right? So for free apps, you get a free license. For paid apps, obviously, they're still going to have that cost. But you can get those licenses, and then you can pull those licenses into SimpleMDM super easily. There's a token that's generated that links the two together. So this allows you to install apps without user intervention, right? So you can push Chrome to all of your devices without a user installing it or even really interacting at all. So you can see here we have some licenses for Adobe Reader, American Airlines, things like that. So I've added these apps from the Apple Store. So you can add Apple Store apps, which is what you'll be doing a lot for the iOS devices. For your Mac OS devices, we also have shared apps. So we maintain a shared app catalog of apps that we keep up to date. So I don't, if you guys are familiar with PDQ Deploy, we have like a application library, package library, I'm fading here, package library, and then Smart Deploy has app packs. So we provide applications in the newest versions. The nice thing about that on your iOS devices is if you don't want to stay at the latest version, you can actually select a previous version and we'll keep your devices at that previous version on the Mac devices. And finally, you can add custom apps. So if you have a custom app that was built for your organization, or you just have a PKG, IPA, DMG file that you want to upload and push that app out, you can do that as well. So we've got some apps in our catalog that we want to assign out. And I've created a few assignment groups here. So creating assignment group is pretty easy. You give it a name. For iOS devices, tvOS, you're going to select the standard group. That's just going to push those devices out. You're basically just saying, hey, I want to use the Apple MDM channels to push these apps out to these devices, and they're going to go automatically whether the user wants them or not, right? Monkey is for Mac OS devices, so I won't dive super into it. It just gives you a few extra things that you can do. For example, if you have Mac OS devices, you can create a self-serve storefront for your Macs. So I'm going to open up, I hope you guys can see this, the Managed Software Center here. So this is just going to give you the capability to create a self-serve storefront where you can pre-select applications and then your users can install or uninstall them themselves based on their need. You can also customize this banner. I know we live in an environment now where you're constantly saying, don't click on anything if you don't know what it is, right? Or even if you do, maybe don't click on it. So rather than give them a simple MDM banner, you can put your own logo there, make it seem a little more clickable than not. This will also, just like the Apple Store apps, the apps will update themselves. So, All right, so what I've done here is I've created a baseline group. So we called that Triple D. So this is going to be the baseline apps that I want to put out. You can see how many licenses are available. If you don't have any licenses available, it's going to say Apple ID there. And what that means is the user is going to have to put in their Apple ID to actually install that application, which is probably what you're trying to avoid, right? So we have licenses for all of these. We're good to go. You can go in at any time and add more licenses from your business manager account for free. No charge unless it's a paid app. And then I've got some PDFs here, right? So I've got the getting started guide, and I've got the a menu from Guy Fieri. So we're going to go ahead and push those out from one of his restaurants, right? So we're going to go ahead and push those out. So like I said earlier, you typically don't push apps, media, anything like that to individual devices. You typically do groups, right? So we're going to select the downtown Flavortown group that this device is enrolled in. Pretty quickly, those apps should start installing. You should see that in just a second. So what a lot of people do is they will create a baseline, right? So they'll create this Triple D as the baseline. So these are the apps that I want all of my devices to have, right? Just for time's sake, since we're on the call, I'm going to go ahead and just hit install. So this is the baseline of applications that you want to have installed on your device, right? And then outside of that, they'll start adding those ancillary apps. So maybe you want to install Facebook on certain apps for like a marketing team that uses that, right? But you don't want everybody to have that. So you can include devices in as many application assignment groups as you want. So it's a one-to-one relationship between device groups. So I can't have my iPad in downtown Flavortown as well as Flavortown Police Department, but I can have it in Triple D, and I'd eat that off a flip-flop, right? These are all real quotes said by Guy Fieri. The career this man has is insane. So you can see now that those baseline apps are installing. So that's happening pretty immediately. Once those are installed, if the end user removes those, the next time the device checks in, it'll reinstall those applications. So that's one way of enforcing apps. You can also use a restrictions profile to prevent them from uninstalling applications. So we have Chrome, American Airlines, Firefox, and the Bitwarden app installed now, as well as Adobe Acrobat. So I've got Facebook blocked again. That's why you can't see it. I flipped that profile back, but it's that easy to install applications, right? And at any time on the fly, you can switch these out. You can uninstall applications. It's not done through this interface, but you can also uninstall applications from devices if you want to. And you can also, I didn't mention this earlier, but you can also push OS updates if you have one. So there's a few different ways to do that if you want to force an OS update now, but just know that if you have a device that you want to force an OS update, you can just hit install update and that'll force it. You can also do that for all of your devices at once if you wanted to come up here and take that action. Awesome. So that is installing applications. The few other things that we have that I'd like to show off are just you can, on your Mac OS devices, you can save and run scripts. So you can save scripts here and go ahead and run those scripts. You can run those as jobs against one device, multiple devices, a whole group, whatever you want to do. We have settings that you can set settings for the application. That's not what I wanted to click though, for users individually, right? So you can create different users and you can define those roles. So if you wanted to add a role besides administrator, totally up to you how you do that. You completely control that role-based access. You can do everything from let them manage devices to create a billing management role. So just whoever handles billing management can see that and not the devices. You probably don't want your accounting team pushing apps out to devices, right? And then you can just get things like notifications if a token's set to expire, something like that. If you go through a enrollment by link and a device does get unenrolled, it will still notify you, so you can still reach out to that user. But again, most of the time you shouldn't have that situation. And then we do have a RESTful API. It's got 90 to 95% parity with the web interface. So just about anything you can do from the web interface, you can use the API to automate as well. I know that a lot of us here are probably automation is kind of the thing that we like to do. We give you that capability as well. And that's SimpleMDM. The thing that I want to leave you guys with right now is just my impressions whenever I first saw the application, where I thought it was very easy to use. It's very well organized and simple to use. And again, if you have Apple devices that you have to manage that you don't want to touch every day, this saves you from having to do that. Eric, anything I missed?
Oh.
He's muted, but I'll take that as a no.
Well, you certainly have a lot of questions, Zach, so I can start running through these, but your demos are informative and so entertaining. I appreciate it. Thanks for bringing some fun to the demo. That was nice. I haven't been through one of your demos, so that was fun. All right.
I thought you'd either like it or think I was insane, so either way.
Oh, I liked it. Yeah. Wonderful. Okay, I'm going to start kind of reading through some questions. I know that some people will need to jump again. Kudos to those people who have already found the link in the chat and taken us up on the free 6-month offer. So there's definitely a handful of people here who have already done it while the demo is happening. If you haven't found chat within GoToWebinar, it should be one of the options there. You can expand that and get to the link there. We'll include that link also in a follow-up email that contains the link to the recording that we'll send next week. So we'll jump into some questions here. So a few different questions actually from a couple of people around how SimpleMDM compares to some of the other tools in this space. Jamf and Intune are the couple that I've seen mentioned here. Could you speak a little bit to comparison?
Yeah, so I'll start, and if Eric wants to add anything, feel free to jump in, definitely. So I think SimpleMDM lives up to the simple name. It's the feedback that I get from customers continuously is it's much easier to use than a lot of other products. It's very well organized. It's very quick, right? The product runs very quickly. Intune is a great product for Windows devices. I've heard it's not quite there yet on Apple devices. So a lot of customers will use Intune and then will come to us and say, yeah, it's not really fulfilling my needs. I need something else. It'll probably get there at some point, but I don't think it's there yet. And Eric actually likes to say a lot of times, Jamf is really great and has a lot of features if you can figure out where they are, right? That's one of my favorite Eric quotes. And I agree with that. So Jamf is cool, Jamf is great, but it's kind of like you're going to have a team to support that, right? You're going to have somebody who spends a ton of time learning, getting certifications, things like that, where SimpleMDM is something you can just drop in and hit the ground running with. Any additional thoughts, Eric?
I think that's a great summary. Yeah, so I think kind of as Zach mentioned, many MDMs in this space support the MDM protocol to a certain extent, and then there are other MDMs out there that build a lot of features that are kind of peripheral to that, and sometimes it's a little bit of a puzzle just putting those all together. We've always focused very strongly on a very effective and efficient implementation of the MDM protocol. So basically what that means is the app's really fast and performant. It's really reliable. You don't have to worry about an OS update breaking something. And we also make it really easy to, we're not forcing you to adopt other peripheral products. You can, if there are different identity providers that you want to pair with our system, you can do that. We're not going to say you have to use Azure AD or something like that. You can use Google Workspace, Okta, essentially anyone who supports SAML. You can use for LDAP, you can use for enrollment authentication, and SSO for admin sign-in. Beyond that, so I think one of the areas we're strongest compared to our competitors is the API. So we have a lot of customers who have found that, some MDMs have built-in automation that works well enough, but really they need something more customizable. And that's where we've put a lot of effort into making sure that our APIs are really easy to work with. So if there is something that you need to do and it needs to be customized to your individual deployment requirements, you can build that out. So, I guess my best advice when you're testing out MDMs is really just to try a few and see which ones you like the best. It's, pretty obvious advice in general for most things, but in my opinion, a lot of the customers that I've talked to really just like the simplicity of the interface. Like Zach said, it doesn't take a team of engineers to manage it. You can get up and running if you're a one-man IT shop, or if you are a team of experienced Apple systems engineers, you can really customize the heck out of it as well. So yeah, hopefully you'll give it a try and you'll be able to make that argument for yourself.
And my advice is don't look at other MDMs, just buy SimpleMDM. Trust me. Do
Awesome. Thank you both for that. We'll jump in. There's a couple other specific questions that I'll kind of jump in here too. Let's see. I do have a question. Okay, so can I create a profile that contains a wireless SSID and network password?
So yes, we do have a wireless network profile you can create here. You can provide the SSID as well as the password. You can have it auto join if you want to. So if you want the device to automatically join that network, if it's available, you can do that. So there's a lot of customization you can do here for your devices. So the short answer is yes.
Great. Martin wants to know, how do you defer iOS updates? So if the latest iOS is 15.6 and we want our users to only install iOS 15.5 until we're ready for 15.6, is that possible?
So there is in that restrictions profile we talked about earlier, you do have the capability of, it's probably right in front of my face. There we go. I'm bad at Alphabet. There is an option to delay OS updates. So you can push off the update up to 90 days. So if you have either iOS or Mac OS updates, if you want to push those out, you can do that up to 90 days. And then at that point, the device would detect the new update and install it.
Yep, and just to be clear, that's an Apple limitations. They only allow us to defer OS updates for up to 90 days maximum. But in most cases, that usually gives IT teams enough time to work with to make sure they're testing the new versions. And there is a little bit more granular control. So in that restrictions profile, so let's say for macOS, for example, if you want to defer major updates, like let's say you're on macOS Monterey and you're not ready for macOS 13 yet, and that comes out, you could delay that for up to 90 days, but not delay minor OS updates, so that Monterey is still being updated, but getting those security updates, but users aren't able to install the major upgrades. So it's pretty useful, and it's pretty powerful when paired with the software update policy profiles that we have as well. So if you want really granular control over how and when those updates are getting installed, you can do that.
Absolutely.
Great. We'll keep running through these questions here. So Ryan wants to know, do I need to attach an iTunes or iCloud account to this in order to have the location services function?
No, you don't have to. The location, and Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, but the location tracking is done through the SimpleMDM app allows that. You'll just have to opt into location tracking on the device or enter loss mode, one of those two things. But loss mode is more like a one-off thing. If it disappeared, if you want full-time tracking, you'll just have to enable location tracking on the device. That's another Apple limitation. It's just something that it's a big security thing. They just require user intervention to enable location tracking.
Yep, Zach nailed it. So loss mode is nice because it's part of the native MDM protocol. And so if the device does go missing, you can lock it down and we can get location data back from that device as long as it's still turned on and has some sort of internet connection. It does not require any sort of iTunes or iCloud account. As you mentioned, for the regular location tracking functionality, again, that happens all through the SimpleMDM app. Basically, the way that works is once it's installed, the user just needs to tap the app. They'll be prompted to allow location access. And once that's been allowed, we'll be able to track that location. In general, so just in terms of the topic of managing iCloud accounts and Apple IDs in general. So when you create an account, a trial account with SimpleMDM, you will be prompted to use an Apple ID to set up a push certificate. I just like to call this out because it can sometimes be a little bit confusing. So that Apple ID is not tied to anything else. It can be a personal Apple ID. It can be like a service account ID. Ultimately, all it needs to be is just a regular Apple ID. And I recommend creating a dedicated ID just for managing that push certificate. And that push certificate is essentially what's allowing our MDM service to work with your devices. So it's really important. It does have to be renewed once per year. But that is the only requirement when it comes to Apple IDs and using an MDM service, is just that Apple ID that you use to create the push certificate.
And we will remind you to renew it as well. We'll send you a reminder if you want.
We do have a lot of notifications just because if it does expire, we'll stop being able to communicate with devices. They won't lose the management abilities, but we won't be able to communicate with them until you renew that certificate. So very important. But in terms of managing Apple IDs on your devices, so it's up to you how you want to manage them. So in some deployments, we see that people say, you know what, Apple IDs are a pain. We don't want to deal with them at all. So we're just going to use that restrictions profile to prevent someone from setting up an Apple ID. So that's one way to handle it. There are other companies that say, we don't really care. We just want to make sure the users have the tools they need to get their work done. But if they want to install some of their own apps, that's fine as well. And in that case, you can, there's nothing you have to do to allow a user to set up their own Apple ID on a device. So I would say just, we have some documentation that kind of walks through this a little bit more. if you still have questions or are confused, it might be worth reading that or talking to our support team. They can kind of walk you through what might make the most sense for your use case. But generally speaking, the short answer is you can use them or you cannot. It's totally up to you.
Great, thank you. Brian wants to know, can you wipe the iCloud linked account?
So you can't wipe the iCloud account. So if an account is on a device, there isn't a way to remotely remove it. We're also not able to manage anything within the iCloud account through an MDM service. That's just an Apple limitation. Like an iCloud account is kind of seen as like a separate entity. That being said, if there is an iCloud account on a device, and let's say it's one of your company managed devices that shouldn't be there, you can wipe the device, and that will also erase the iCloud account. Or it won't erase the account, but it will remove the account from that device once the device is erased.
You can also remove that activation lock if they've created that on the device as well and not remove themselves from it.
Correct, yeah.
Great. Kevin wants to know, if the iPad is fresh out of the box, can you show us how you add it to the MDM? How does SimpleMDM know to set up that device? I know there's a few options you ran through, Zach, but fresh out of the box, an iPad, walk us through that scenario one more time if you can.
Yes, so the easiest way, I don't want to show off our Apple Business Manager account just because there's some data in there I don't want everybody to have. But essentially the easiest way, again, is to get that Apple Business Manager account set up. It's free. It's just a few days wait with Apple. You'll just request to get one from Apple. Then the other nice thing about that is when you buy devices, so if you buy them from Apple, Verizon, AT&T, CDW, somebody like that, they can automatically add those devices to your Business Manager account for you. So you don't actually have to do anything at all outside of buy the device, turn it on, connect it to Wi-Fi. But essentially what's happening is the device is getting added to Apple Business Manager. There's a token that's generated that links the two together. And whenever the device turns on, so anytime that one of these devices turns on, they check in with Apple. And when they go to check in, if they're being pointed at an MDM, they'll automatically enroll themselves into that MDM. Right. So that's and then go through the setup process. So what I showed you earlier, I already have this iPad in the Apple Business Manager account. So it automatically went through that setup process. All I had done prior to that was wipe the device and then turn it on and then just go through like the, set up manually step and then put my wireless password in. You do have a couple other options. So like I said, you can send a link to enroll the devices. So if you want the devices to scan a QR code, click a link, something like that, it's going to prompt the end user to go through enrollment. So you can also enroll them that way. And then there's an application for iOS and Mac OS called Apple Configurator that you can also use to add devices. That one's a little more hands-on, a little more work, but we have guides on doing that as well.
Great, thanks, Zach.
So just to reiterate what Zach said, if the devices are owned by your company, really the recommended approach is to go through Apple Business Manager. As Zach said, it's just going to make the process really seamless for you. So a very popular term in the Apple admin community is zero-touch deployment, which basically means no additional user interaction during the setup process. That's usually kind of the desired state of your deployment strategy. And that's what Apple Business Manager, when paired with an MDM, gives you. So again, just to kind of walk through those steps, basically from the admin side, all you would need to do is buy those devices. And when you buy those devices, they'll get added to ABM automatically. You connect ABM to SimpleMDM. And then you'll just need to basically assign those devices to the SimpleMDM server in Apple Business Manager. And you can actually set up default rules in ABM so that when new devices get added, so let's say you have a new order, goes through with Apple, those devices get added. You don't even have to log into Apple Business Manager. They'll just get assigned to SimpleMDM automatically. And then all the user has to do is turn it on, connect it to Wi-Fi, and that's it. They're done. And the device will enroll into whichever groups you've set up to as your initial device group, and go pull down any configuration profiles and any apps that you've assigned to that group. So it's a very seamless process. Again, really removes a lot of the interaction, both from the admin side and the end user side, to set up a device.
Wonderful. All right, I know we're running up here on our 45-minute mark, so if people need to jump, totally understand. We'll answer a few more questions. If we didn't get to your question, feel free to reach out. You have your SmartPlay customer success manager who can certainly connect you with Zach or Eric or a rep over on the SimpleMDM team. Happy to answer any questions that you have and help you out. There's also a really fantastic support forum where you can kind of self-serve and get help. I think Eric and Zach have both mentioned a few of the documentation pieces, video guides, all of that. So let's jump into a couple more questions here and then we'll kind of call it for the day. So Martin says, a few months ago, we moved from Symantec to Microsoft Defender. We could not automate Microsoft Defender installation through AirWatch for Mac OS devices. For this reason, we've been installing Defender manually, which is quite a pain. Can SimpleMDM automate Defender onboarding and agent installation?
So that's a great question. You know, I don't have personal experience, or at least I haven't had to do it recently with Defender specifically. I would say with most, especially like antivirus and other like scanner applications, there's also like, there's usually multiple components to them, right? So there's like an app, but there's also certain levels of permissions. Sometimes there's a license key that needs to be set. My advice is that in the Mac admins community, which if you go to macadmins.org, there's a Slack group that you can join. If you're having troubles deploying something, I can almost guarantee that someone out there has found a way to do it without requiring manual intervention. I don't have that knowledge off the top of my head, but if it is something that you've got your trial going and you're getting stuck, reach out to our support team and we can help try and figure those things out. I would say that, you know, especially with those antivirus and anti-malware software, each one has different requirements, and so it's a little bit of, we can give you certain steps, and it might be a little bit of an interactive support experience where it's kind of like, hey, you might need to try this first. They're just, you know, pretty complicated pieces of software, but we should be able to get you most of the way there. And then the community as well, they're really great, and there's a lot of really smart people there who have been through all of the pain and suffering that might be involved in deploying those things, and most of them have, you know, found some way to do that. So again, my personal advice would be reach out to us. We'll see how far we can get, and also reach out to that community, and I'm sure we can find a way to solve that for you if someone hasn't already.
And that community thing is not at all a push off. There are really some genuine geniuses out there who have done every kind of install that you want to try to do. So we are not above listening to others that are smarter than we are. So I highly recommend that Mac admins community as well.
Wonderful. I have a question, same question from Steve and Manny. They want to know, if I'm already using another MDM solution, how do I move my devices over to SimpleMDM? What's the process for that?
Yeah, I can take that one, Zach.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so the first step would be just to set up your trial. If your devices are already registered in Apple Business Manager, you can connect multiple MDMs to a single Apple Business Manager account. So the first step would be just, you know, connecting SimpleMDM up to your Apple Business Manager instance. And then if you want to start migrating devices over, just reassign them in Apple Business Manager to the SimpleMDM server. For iOS devices, migrating from one MDM to another, if you're using automated enrollment, does require the device to be erased. Unfortunately, that's just the nature of the technology. It's going to be the case regardless of what MDM service you're using. If your devices are not using automated enrollment, you can manually unenroll them and then manually enroll them into SimpleMDM as well. So there's a couple different ways to do it. But yeah, if you're using automated enrollment for iOS or iPadOS, it will require wiping the device. For macOS, there's a little bit more nuance to it than that. I would still recommend the same steps. Make sure you've got the devices reassigned to the SimpleMDM server. But there is actually a script that you can run that will trigger the automated enrollment process without having to wipe macOS. So if you're in that scenario, reach out to us, reach out to our support team, and we can send you, resources to get that done. We've actually written a guide on our blog that walks through kind of all the different strategies and things to consider when migrating from one MDM to another. So yeah, don't hesitate to get in touch with us, and we can get you pointed in the right direction, figure out what strategy works best for you.
Yeah, and one other thing that I do like to mention is, you're probably going to be in a testing phase at the beginning, right? You're not going to move your whole environment over. Inside of Apple Business Manager, you do have the ability to point one specific device or two at SimpleMDM. You can point all of one type. So if you want to say enroll on my iPads, you can do that. So you don't have to flip a switch over, right from the start. You can enroll a couple devices, test it out, see how you like it.
Wonderful. All right. We still have a lot of questions, but I think we better call it for the day. If we didn't get to your question, please feel free again to reach out. If you're not sure who your Smart Deploy rep is, you can just email customer success at smartdeploy.com. And again, they can connect you with Zach, Eric, or someone on the SimpleMDM team who can help get your questions answered. So definitely check out that 6-month free offer. It's valued at $750, so might as well. You do have to start that by August 31st is the only time restraint there. So other than that, watch for an email follow-up next week. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for being a Smart Deploy customer, and have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for joining us here at Smart Deploy, powered by PDQ.com. You can sign in to Smart Deploy by going to smartdeploy.com/sign-in and view detailed license information. If you need support, you can go to support.smartdeploy.com, check out our knowledge base, or submit a support ticket.